Touchdown, Alabama, let's get it.
The process, no one can stop this. Hottest show in the streets, I bet you can't top this. Recruiting news and interviews, just sit back and watch this.
Recruiting news and interviews, just sit back and watch this.
The process.
How's it going, everyone? Welcome back into The Process, Crimson Tide Recruiting. I'm your host, Justin Smith, the Director of Recruiting for Touchdown, Alabama. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for this episode of The Process. The first thing I need you to do is hit the like button, hit the subscribe button as well. If you're already one of our loyal subscribers, be sure to hit that notification bell. Be notified when we drop content on our YouTube page. I'm here each week to break down the latest in Crimson Tide football recruiting news. And on today's episode, I want to recap the Crimson Tide Junior Day event over the weekend. The Tide had an opportunity to host multiple recruits across multiple recruiting classes, of course, extending multiple new offers. I'll talk about some of those guys on today's show. I also talk about the Crimson Tide possibly adding another quarterback to the 2024 recruiting class. I think that it will be a pretty interesting development. We'll talk about it a little bit later, just taking a look at what the Crimson Tide did during the 2023 recruiting cycle, where they did sign Dylan Lonergan and Eli Holstein. It'll be pretty interesting to see if they go through with plans of doing the same in this upcoming recruiting cycle. We'll also talk about some couple of new offers the Crimson Tide extended to a couple of in-state underclassmen to know heading into a bright future for those guys. But we're going to start with the quarterback discussion. We all know the Crimson Tide currently have a commitment from five-star quarterback Julian Sayin out of Carlsbad High School in California, but the Crimson Tide have continued to show interest in recruiting other 2024 quarterbacks, including extending some new offers to guys. One of those offers went out to Aaron Nolan, a 2024 four-star quarterback out of Georgia who led Langston Hughes High School to a 6A state championship this past season in Georgia, an undefeated record in an explosive offense where he threw 55 touchdowns, threw for more than 4,000 yards while only throwing 4 interceptions. He was really accurate on the deep ball in terms of his touch on the football. As you guys can see, just dropping the football in the bucket a lot of times in tight spaces, tight windows, in terms of his touch on the ball and the arc, the perfect arc they seem to put on the football in space is really impressive. And the Crimson Tide extended that offer to him over the weekend. That offer came from Nick Saban, of course, and I had an opportunity to catch up with Nolan after he picked up that offer from the Crimson Tide. I am going to read out one of those quotes that I was able to get from the four-star quarterback in terms of what he thought about Alabama. He said the hardware there at Alabama is there for a reason. The legacy speaks for itself. They have everything you are looking for on the field there: the trophies, the coaches, the players, and the staff. Off the field, they have a great institution for student athletes. When I think of the University of Alabama, I think of the trophies, the national championships, and of course, Coach Saban. I also discussed with them how will him looking at Alabama in the future be impacted by the fact that they currently have a commitment from five-star quarterback Julian Sayin. This is what Nolan told me word by word. You have to compete at the job I play, which is quarterback. You cannot run away from the competition, especially at the position I play, especially with the game of football. Competition is something you could not shy away from. I know they have a commit. At the end of the day, it is a business. Coach actually told me he is going to take 2 in his class. Just knowing that they have a commit is something I have to take into consideration. But at the end of the day, I would love to go out and compete with any and every quarterback in the country. So, according to Nolan, the Crimson Tide are interested in taking another quarterback in this recruiting class. And I think that is going to, strike most people by surprise, because it looks like the most likable situation when it comes to the Crimson Tide quarterback depth would be that they would have 6 quarterbacks if they took 2 quarterbacks in this recruiting cycle, adding them on with Dylan Lonergan, Eli Holstein, and Jalen Miro and Ty Simpson. If Jalen Miro doesn't go on to have a great season, and this is starting quarterback for Alabama, if he doesn't go on to have a great season and go on to be an NFL prospect, which is something that I think a lot of people are not projecting at the moment, the Crimson Tide will most likely have 6 quarterbacks. I'm not sure if that is going to happen entirely, but according to Nolan, the Crimson Tide are at least open to adding another quarterback in this 2024 recruiting cycle. And I think that's just an interesting development to pay attention to when it comes to the Crimson Tide continuing to show interest in other 2024 quarterback prospects as well. But as we all know, like I've updated you guys on the process, Julian Sand has told me that he is 100% locked in with the Crimson Tide. It is all roll tide over there for him. So Crimson Tide have a commitment from 5-star QB Julian Sand, still locked in with Alabama. Of course, other schools are still recruiting him. The Crimson Tide are still recruiting other quarterbacks. We will see how this continues to develop as the 2024 recruiting cycle continues to move forward. But switching over to actually not leaving Georgia, not even leaving Langston Hughes High School, as the Crimson Tide also offered Nolan's teammate, 2024 4-star defensive back. I don't think he's a 4-star, but he's going to be 4-star or higher by the time he is rated on most recruiting sites. So I think he's projected to be a 4-star. I think he's not ranked or like low, has a very low ranking on most recruiting sites at the moment, but I think that is going to change. Actually helped Sandy Creek High School win a 3A state championship this past season. He's transferring to Langston Hughes High School this to play with them this upcoming season. But when you take a look at Good's film, that's a lot to like, man. When you take a look at his versatility, that is something that Nick Saban really liked about his game. This is a guy who's coming from, well, he's not going to be coming from because he's transferring to Langston Hughes, remember, but he played at Sandy Creek High School last year. That is the same high school that produced Brian Branch. And in terms of being versatile, that is where their game is sort of similar. Brian Branch played everywhere at Sandy Creek High School, played wide receiver, played defensive back, played all over the secondary, and Good is able to do that as well with a very physical playing style similar to Brian Branch. But when I take a look at his film, I think he's a little bit further along in terms of being a tackler and being a physical guy who's able to stack and shed a little bit, as he's able to make some plays behind the line of scrimmage as a run stopper at times coming down inside the box. I think he's a little bit further along at the high school level in that regard than Brian Branch was at that particular point in his development. But Good is a guy I think who's going to continue to rise. He's a rising 2024 recruit to know. He plans to camp in Tuscaloosa this summer, so he's going to be a guy who could really rise on Alabama's recruiting board if he has a great camp showing in Tuscaloosa during the summer. And I think this is just something to keep at the front of your mind. A lot of these guys are getting offers, and at the end of the day, a lot of them will have to come back to Tuscaloosa to camp in the future. And I think Good is one of those guys who's looking forward to getting back to Tuscaloosa and camp and showing the Crimson Tide what he can do in person and live action in terms of him moving around. But he had a lot of great things to say about the Crimson Tide in his offer. He said he loves the Alabama football program. Honestly, they produce greatness down there in Tuscaloosa, and I'm trying to be great one day. He said it was surreal talking with Nick Saban. He said he grew up watching Alabama football dominate, and Nick Saban was the head man behind it. So it was just really special for him to meet Saban. Of course, he said he loved it in Tuscaloosa and he can't wait to get back to camp. So Good is a guy I'll pay close attention to, especially when the camp season rolls around, when Nick Saban and Alabama's coach staff gets an opportunity to see a lot of these guys run around in the camp setting. The Crimson Tide also offered 6'7" offensive lineman Marquez Easley out of Illinois. The Crimson Tide signed a massive offensive line class in the 2023 recruiting cycle. I think the average size of those guys was around 6'6", 6'7", and the Crimson Tide's offensive line coach Eric Wolford seems to want to go after, especially guys at the tackle position with great size and great length. When you take a look at Marquez, he currently stands at 6'7", or is approximately 300 pounds. Like I said, he is a product of Illinois, so the Tide did dip into the state of Illinois during the 2023 recruiting cycle when they signed Miles McVay out East St. Louis High School. When you take a look at Easley, like I said, 6'7", 300 pounds. Nick Saban considers him to be an athlete. When you take a look at a guy that size, when you think of him as an athlete, you're usually talking about the way that he's able to move. When you see the way that he's able to move, specifically when it comes to run blocking, you see him pulling, you see him using his weight and carrying his weight really well at the moment. Of course, this is a guy I think the Crimson Tide would love to get back to see camp in the future as well. But he said he was shocked when he picked up an offer from the Crimson Tide. He said he didn't even believe it. He was just like, wow, it was a program and everything. Had an opportunity to catch up with Nick Saban during that Junior Day event, of course. So he's a guy we'll pay attention to here. A new target for the Crimson Tide out of Illinois. Seems to fit the size profile that the Crimson Tide and the offensive line coach Eric Wolford seems to want to go after when it comes to the tackle position in particular. The Tide did stay inside the state here and extend a new offer to a 2024 recruit when they offered Hoover's 2024 four-star linebacker Bradley Shaw, who's really starting to see his recruitment pick up here over the last couple of months, picking up offers from programs like Florida, has offers from Mississippi State, of course, has some Power 5 offers, and look as if his recruitment is trending upwards at the moment. When you take a look at him, 6'1", weighs up more than 200 pounds. Of course, great size, a guy who is a monster in the weight room. I actually have been to Hoover a couple of times over the last week or so. I know I went last week and I actually went earlier today to see them work out. And of course, Shaw was working out, and just to give you guys a glimpse of his strength, he's actually participating in a state track meet this week in the shot put, and I think that just kind of shows the strength that he has at that linebacker position. But when you take a look at his film, you see some of those instincts, his ability to read and react. You see some of the things that you like to see out of a linebacker prospect in terms of him playing sideline to sideline, looking good in space. Once he reads where the play is going, you see him attack it. See some of those things that you like to see. But of course, like a lot of these guys, I think he's going to be a guy who will benefit by coming to camp in Tuscaloosa in the future, showing the Crimson Tide what he is able to do. Along with these 2024 recruits, the Crimson Tide also had some underclassmen on campus over the weekend, including 2025 5-star linebacker Jaden Prelati out of Bruford High School in Bruford, Georgia, who's currently verbally committed to the Bulldogs. Had an opportunity to visit Alabama for the first time since picking up an offer from the Crimson Tide. What is kind of funny is he actually picked up an offer from Alabama just a couple of days before he verbally committed to the Bulldogs. So this is the first time he got to Tuscaloosa since picking up that offer from Alabama and since being verbally committed to Georgia, of course. But he has some great things to say about the visit. He said it's one of the most amazing visits that he has ever been on. Spoke glowingly about having the opportunity to talk with Nick Saban. Said it was a memorable conversation. He said it felt crazy to hear Nick Saban say that he wants him in Tuscaloosa and playing for Alabama. When you take a look at his game, there's a lot to like in terms of this point in his development. I like the fact that he looks really comfortable in coverage. I think that goes to the fact that he's not the biggest linebacker at the moment. I think he's going to benefit from continuing to be at a powerhouse like Bruford High School, going through a program that's going to continue to build up his muscle, continue to build up his game as a whole. I think he's going to benefit from that. But when you take a look at his ability to play in space, I think that really stands out. Of course, when watching his film, especially over the first couple of plays, you see those big hits that he's able to make. So he's a physical linebacker prospect who's playing at the highest level of high school football in Georgia. So you know he's going to continue to grow. You know he's going to continue to get better. And you know with them already being verbally committed to the Bulldogs, they're going to try to keep him in state. So it's going to be a pretty interesting battle there in the future, because I do think he has a lot of interest in Alabama at the moment. Just speaking highly of that visit, saying it was a great visit for him, an amazing visit in terms of Alabama standard. He actually compared it to Bruford High School, which, like I said, is a high school football powerhouse inside the state of Georgia. So we'll pay attention to Jaden's recruitment and see how things work out with him in the future. Another 2025 recruit who was on campus over the weekend was 2025 hard-nosed, physical tight end Eli Owens out of Tennessee. I know Nick Saban consistently talks about recruiting tight ends and having tight ends who are able to put their hand in the ground. If you've been watching the process for, I would say, at least over the last couple of months in particular, you know how I feel about tight ends, specifically at the high school football level. I feel at most high schools, they don't use them the right way in terms of them developing into being complete tight ends. A lot of times you see those guys flex out wide a little bit too much at the wide receiver position, in my opinion, and they don't get an opportunity to really put their hand in the ground and just perfect their technique and become better physical blockers Eli Owens is a guy who you are not going to have to worry about that with, because he is a guy who's coming from a run-heavy offense, actually, which allows him to put his hand in the ground, become a better blocker, get experience as a blocking tight end. But he's also a receiving threat. You're going to see him flex out wide at times. You're going to see him be a big target in the open field. You're going to see him be a red zone threat. And whoever did his huddle film did it really well. I know I like to give some guys pointers who want to be recruits in the future, big-time recruits. Your huddle film is very, very important. And of course, you want to include plays that really show off things that are valuable for the position that you play in. I think Eli Owens did that perfectly. Like I said, showing that he can put his hand in the ground, showing that he is able to block, showing that he can present himself as a big target in the open space as a tight end, knowing how to fill out a zone, knowing when to sit down in that zone and be that big target, and also be a red zone threat who can go up and get the football. So Eli Owens is a guy I think people need to pay attention to, because I think he's going to be one of the top tight end prospects in the 2025 recruiting class. Alabama did put that offer on the table for Owens. Like I said, he is a product of Tennessee. Of course, with them visiting on Junior Day, everybody who visited on Junior Day basically got an opportunity to come to Nick Saban's office, and he extended that offer to him. In terms of a quote from Eli Owens, he said it was really awesome to be able to experience hearing Nick Saban offer him. He said he was in a meeting with Coach Saban when Nick Saban said he liked this film and gave him that offer. When you watch that film, you know why Nick Saban said that. He loves those guys who are already putting their hand in the ground, already perfecting their ability to block. He said he was in awe when he heard that. Everybody wants to hear those words from Nick Saban. So Eli Owens is another 2025 prospect to know who earned an offer from the Crimson Tide over the weekend, a 2025 prospect out of Tennessee. Jonah Winston, a 2026 athlete out of Hoover High School, picked up an offer from the Crimson Tide after visiting Alabama for their Junior Day over the weekend. And take a look at Winston and him being in the 2026 recruiting class. The Crimson Tide has offered a couple of guys in this recruiting class. Those guys are freshmen. It's not out of the ordinary for Alabama, any other program, to offer freshmen. He actually had an offer from Texas A&M before Alabama put an offer on the table for the Hoover product. He's actually Jameis Winston's younger brother. He has a great upside at a couple of different positions. Some feel that he may can be a quarterback in the future. I talked to some of his coaches actually today. That is where some of this footage is coming from. Like I said, I was at Hoover High School earlier today, and they feel like he will be more of a tight end, more of a wide receiver. When you take a look at his film, I think about Eli Owens, but when you take a look at Winston's film, he's a really explosive athlete, a fast prospect. You see that on a film where we are showing you guys right now as a wide receiver. Even when they put him in at like wildcat quarterback, it usually just takes the ball and just takes off, because it's usually a designed quarterback run. Of course, with the arm that he has, he can present himself as a passing threat if need be, but it looks as if Hoover High School is leaning more towards him being a wide receiver. His defensive back is not out of the table. He's just an all-around athlete at this point, but the Crimson Tide did put an offer on the table for him. He said it felt great to get that offer. In terms of him visiting Alabama for Junior Day, he said he was on campus for a day, but he can tell why they are at the top of college football. But Jonah Winston is a guy to just know at this moment. I look forward to watching him and continuing to watch his development over the next couple of years at Hoover High School. But we'll close today's show out by talking about KJ Lacey, another young prospect out of the state of Alabama who earned an offer from the Crimson Tide. The 2024-2025 quarterback out of Saraland High School in Alabama picked up an offer from the Crimson Tide, and this offer seemed like it was destined to come his way. I actually wrote a story on him last week, just talking about how his recruitment was taking off with offers from Ole Miss, Auburn, just a whole bunch of different schools coming his way. And his teammate is 2025 wide receiver Ryan Williams, who's currently verbally committed to Alabama, of course. And when you take a look at any film that Ryan Williams put together and puts out, it is fantastic, right? You see him catching all these great passes down the field, getting behind the defense, getting the football on jet sweeps in the wildcat. Everywhere you see Ryan Williams making plays. But when you take a look at his film, you see him at the wide receiver position. You see those passes that he's catching all of those passes are coming from KJ Lacey, and he's a guy who's shown the ability to have great accuracy, continuing to work on his mobility, and he's a winner because he led Saraland to a Class 6A state championship this past season as a sophomore. So he has that winning mentality in him. And before he got that offer from the Crimson Tide, I did ask him what would an offer from Alabama mean. He said that would be big because he had a relationship with Alabama's coaching staff previously, because most of the time when Ryan Williams was in Tuscaloosa for visits, KJ Lacey was along with them. Will the Crimson Tide pull in the duo in the future? I think that is something to just watch as the Crimson Tide to continue to recruit the state of Alabama, in particular Saraland High School. But that is what I want to talk about on this episode of The Process. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. As always, before you leave, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Be sure to hit the like button as well. If you're already a subscriber, be sure to hit that notification bell. Be notified when we drop content on our YouTube channel. Then head over to touchdownalabama.com. Pick up your subscription today. Leave there. Go to the Apple App Store if you have an Apple device to download the Touchdown Alabama app. If you have a Android device, go to the Google Play Store to download the app as well, so breaking news notifications can be sent to your mobile device. As always, I am Justin Smith, the Director of Recruiting for Touchdown Alabama.
Process.